my name's Clive and welcome to Discus Fish at Warratower Lodge.
Hi, in this video today we're going to talk about tank dividers. Why would you need a tank divider? Well, there are several reasons really. Personally, I can tell you what I use them for, and the first one really is if you've got fish with babies. If you've just had some babies born with some, needn't necessarily be discus, but if you want to keep the parents with the babies and they don't want to get eaten by the other tank mates, it's a good idea to put a screen up and actually separate them. Another reason is cleaning. I've provided a video here where you can see me cleaning my big tank, and initially in the first part of the video you can see I've sort of corralled all the discus down one end, and you can see quite clearly from the video that the water on the left hand end is really cloudy, where I've been stirring up the sand and doing general cleans and things like that. Obviously once you've cleaned it, got the worst of the mess out, just let it settle a little bit, open the divider up on one side, shove the fish through, or try and get them to go through, close it back up, and then you can actually do the other end. Another reason is could be separating the fish for, I don't know, you need to split the tank to change the sand. When you change sand, you've usually got to take all the fish out of the tank, and it's a bit of a palaver. So if you put the screen up halfway along, you can actually take all the sand and the ornaments out, and once the sand's back and it's settled a bit, then you can once again move the edge of the divider back a bit, get the fish in that half, put it back, and then obviously clean and change the sand in the other half. So there are many reasons, it's entirely up to you, but it's just something that I do, and I thought I'd pass it on to you. For discus breeding, your tanks ideally should be 20 inches by 20 inches by 20 inches. I think it's around about 20 gallons, it's recommended. It should be what they call a sterile tank, and most people paint them white, or in my case I put white paper on the outside. But still, even so, in there you've got your heater and suction pipes and bits and pieces which are black. And with the discus babies, once they become free swimming, they tend to go for the darkest thing in the tank, which should be the parents. If you've got a nice big black filter there, or a heater, chances are they go towards that and they won't feed off the parents, and obviously they're going to die. So one of the things that I've made, because I haven't got the right size tanks, my tanks are too big, and we've been basically talking about the dividers for ordinary tanks for cleaning purposes. There's a second type of screen that I actually make, and it's made in much the same way as the green divider, but this one's covered in filter wool, and basically you can divide a tank up so the end of the tank, as far as they're concerned, is pure white. This means that you can limit the size of the tank, and obviously when the babies are about to become free swimming, you also need to lower the water level so that the parents can find the babies. So what I'm going to do now is show you how to make one of these screens. It's nice and simple, and tell you what tools and bits and pieces you need. So stick with us, and that's coming up right now. Okay, let's basically talk about the tools you're going to need. Not much. Once again, I didn't bother getting the tools out because there's hardly anything there. You'll need a tape measure, a junior hacksaw, and approximately a 1/4 inch drill bit with a drill. Now, as regards materials, you're going to need some 20mm overflow pipe. We used this previously in another video. It's just ordinary 20mm plastic overflow pipe. You're going to need that kind of pipe there. You're going to need 4 elbows, 4 of these. you're going to need some what they call greenhouse shading. Now, greenhouse shading is literally what it says. It's used to put up in greenhouses. It keeps the sun out, but nicely for us. It's easy to clean. It's got a very small mesh, and it allows the water to flow through it. You can obviously see the screen here, which you saw previously in the photograph in the tank. I'm going to hold it up with a biro so you can actually see the size of the holes, hopefully, in the mesh. So let's try and hold that up there so you can see the holes there are probably around about 1 millimetre diameter. That seems to be an ideal size. It allows the water flow and does what it's supposed to do, which is really stop fish from going one end to the other or whatever. Okay, as you can see here, it's quite simple. There's a piece of mesh. On each end there is a piece of pipe, and the mesh is actually held around the pipe just with a few cable ties. Just push a screwdriver through there, put some cable ties on there, and that's it. Now the distance from one end to the other, this should be the inside width of your tank. So before you do the second end of this, just make sure that when you fold it over, put a tape measure across it and make sure it's going to fit exactly in your tank, because what you want is this pole to go up against the or each of the end poles to go up against the glass. If you've got a big gap there, obviously the fish are going to swim around it. Now the way that I've secured the top, I think most people's tanks, if they're a largish tank, which we're talking about here, I mean this isn't perhaps too appropriate for a very tiny tank, we're talking about 4-foot tanks upwards. Most of them have what they call longitudinals on the top edge of the glass, front and back. Usually they're a couple of inches deep, and what they do is they stop the glass from bowing. Now we take advantage of this because on the picture you actually saw before we started doing this video, I will put it on again in a minute for you and you can actually see where I'm coming from. Initially, when you're putting one end in the tank, you'll push this end here down into the sand, and then on the top end you push it down so it's just about going to touch the longitudinal. You push a sticky one of those black plastic pads on there, make sure it's wet, and then just force it underneath the longitudinal up against the glass. This actually keeps it in place. So the bottom's held in place by the sand, the top's held in place by that, and it does a lovely job. Now that's done both ends, and then on the top, what I've done here is I've cut again a piece of plastic pipe. I've put a slot in it. That slot in the tank, when that's like that and the longitudinal is here, you've obviously pushed this back towards the edge of the tank. There's your longitudinal. That actually slips over the longitudinal and locks the top in place. So it's very, very simple. If you haven't got longitudinals to fix the top to, there's no reason why you couldn't put a couple of elbows on the tops of each of these side supports, and then put yourself a piece of pipe across there and do the same where you wrap it over and put your cable ties on. That'll keep the top nice and stiff. As regards the bottom, it tends to go right into the sand anyway, so the fish can't get underneath it. Another quick thought is, depending, you may even want to use some of these clips, because you can actually push these clips onto the edge, and you can actually stick those to the side of your tank. So okay, that's the initial screen for separating the tank for cleaning and keeping the fish away. Now, I mentioned earlier that I've made a different type of screen for the discus fish themselves. I'll just get this out of the way. Okay, here is the other type of screen. This is actually for a smaller tank, which is about 20 inches tall, 20 inches deep, but it's about 4 foot long. So what I want to do is actually shorten the tank so my discus have got less space there for the babies to find them, or for them to find the babies. So all this does is this just simply slips down into the tank and jams up against the edge of the tank. You need to be sort of a little bit critical about the size of the framework you make. Make the framework for this out of tube again. Once again, obviously you can no doubt see from the video there's a thickness to it, and obviously inside there is this plastic pipe which makes your frame up. Simply 4 elbows, 4 bits of pipe. You needn't bother gluing them, just push them all together, and then make sure that is a nice snug fit on the side of your glass tank. And then once again, if you want to fix it to the longitudinals, you can put a clip over the top and you can actually fix it up to your longitudinal if you need to. Once the frame is made, if you can get hold of some of this stuff, again I'll hold it up against a biro as a reference for you. It's a nylon, it's a simple nylon cord, and it doesn't rot in the tank. You've got to stay away from cotton and things like that, because cotton will just completely disintegrate in the tank. So having got some of that, all you do then is cut this cut this white floss here too, which is normally for your white filters. This stuff is about 1 inch thick, and all you do is you cut it over, cut a 45 degrees on the edges, fold it over, and hopefully you can see it. I've actually sewn it with the nylon cord, and I used a large needle with a big eye. In fact, I was lucky enough to have what they call a carpet needle. Carpet needle is about 3 inches long, quite a big eye on it, and you can just sew it through and then just notch it up when you're finished. So that's an ideal little screen for the discus. What it means is, I said, just to quickly recap, it's going to jam in the tank, limit the size of the tank so the babies can find the parents, the parents can find the babies, and it allows water flow through it. So I hope you basically found this useful, and please don't forget to just subscribe. There's loads more coming soon, so thank you for watching. I did mention a little bit earlier on in the tools list that you'd need a 1/4 inch drill and some kind of electrical battery drill, and although I didn't mention it earlier on because I actually forgot, I thought I'd tell you about it now. This white tank divider you can see here now is obviously got 4 corners and 4 pieces of pipe, so basically it's a sealed unit. What you don't want is it trying to float. So if you're going to make any kind of frame whereby it has sealed tops and bottoms, use the 1/4 inch drill, and in the top and bottom lengths of pipe, put 1 hole each end about 1/4 inch. This allows it to fill with water and it stays in place. This tank's just been cleaned out. The eggs that were on there hatched out into wrigglers yesterday, and obviously later on tomorrow they should be free swimming, and we need them to find mum and dad. So as you can see, this divider has now reduced the tank by half the width, and sometime tomorrow when I see the wrigglers free swimming, I should reduce the water level for them. So hope you found this interesting, and look forward to seeing you next time.